I'm Matt Gallagher of Suncatcher Brewing, and this is the Brewer to Brewer podcast from All About Beer. My guest is Van Havig of Gigantic Brewing Company in Portland, Oregon, and he is here for a conversation that goes beyond the brew house and into the topics that matter to brewing professionals and curious beer drinkers. First, please visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media at allaboutbeer. And to support journalism in the beer space, check out allaboutbeer.com/support. We'll get into the conversation in just a moment, but first, this message.
Malteurop Malting Company is proud to introduce the new Malteurop, grown and malted in Mexico. At Malteurop, they're proud to be growing and producing malt in Mexico. They work hand in hand with Mexican farmers to ensure the best barley, which is then processed in their own local Mexico malt house to create this exceptional Malteurop. This product is a superior quality two-row base malt and provides consistent quality designed to satisfy your desire to brew a true Mexican lager. Contact Malteurop today and visit malteuropmaltingco.com. Next time you're going through your books, check and see how much you're paying for brewery software. Odds are you're paying way too much. Ollie is the fastest growing brewery software that is saving brewers time and money while delivering the tools they need to grow their business. Learn more at getollie.com/pod. That's getollie.com/pod.
Okay, let's get into it. A bit about my guest today. Van Havig has been brewing for over 30 years, a couple in Minnesota, a few in Maryland, and finally in Oregon for the last 25 years. He's worked in 500,000 barrel a year breweries down to 1,500 barrel a year brew pubs, and in 2012 founded Gigantic Brewing Company in Portland, Oregon, which is a 4,000 barrel a year brewery with a couple of tap rooms. What's up, Van? I'm happy to have you on the show today, and looking forward to spending an hour chatting with you.
Thanks, Matt. I'm kind of stoked. It's nice to hang out.
Yeah, it's great to see you. We've known each other for
a while.
A while. I was trying to think how long, and I kind of gave up because I was like, I don't know, but at least 10 years, definitely more than 10 years.
Yeah, definitely more than 10 years. When did you guys start in like 2009?
We started brewing in Chicago in 2009. Yeah, Half Acre opened 2007, and but yeah, we got the brewery going in Chicago in 2009. And
I think I met you at the Chicago conference, which was 9-10.
That was 2010. Yeah, that was a big one for us because we had just kind of gotten open, and all of a sudden, the whole brewing world was there.
Yeah. I was still with Rock Bottom, and I remember drinking Daisy Cutter and being like, "This beer is awesome."
Yeah. Great. Well, 500,000 barrel a year brewery. This is was this your first brewing gig?
Yeah, my very, very first brewing gig was Minnesota Brewing Company in 1995. It was an old Schmidt plant in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Okay.
It actually had, this place was so big. I have so many stories about this place. It's insane. But it was so big that I can remember I only worked there for like 4 months, but I started there in January, and there were slow days, and it was a union job. So they had to kind of keep you working if they could. And I remember being told, no joke, one of the master brewer's sons, Bobby Milbauer, he was working there for a little bit, kind of after college, trying to figure out what he's going to do. So his dad was like, "Bobby, go work in the wash house." And I remember his dad, Mike Milbauer, coming down to us and being like, "Bobby, Van, I want you to go somewhere in the brewery where you don't know where you are, and then find another way back. And if I see you within 45 minutes, you're fucking fired." So and we're just like, "Really?" And he's like, "Get the hell out of my sight." And this huge old brewery, and you would just literally, there were rooms where you would walk into, and it was a huge room full of equipment. We had no idea what it was. Because this is like some of this was pre-prohibition equipment. And you'd walk into this huge room and there'd be no lights. And there'd just be old God knows what tanks and stuff. And you'd open the door and you'd be like, "There's no lights in here." Bobby, there's a door over there. Go run over to that door. I'll keep the door open. You open that one, then I'll close this one. I'm like, I'm not shooting you. And then just like finding stairs and being like, what the hell is this? And then literally just being like, holy shit, we're on top of the grain silos. How'd we get here? It was totally nuts. The kettle was 475 barrels.
Oh my God.
475 barrel kettle.
That's the amount you're gonna have to make in a year.
Yeah, totally. Right. It's more than most breweries make in a year, right? And it was, I never worked on the brew house because I was just a kid. And that was like there were literally two people in this huge brewery that ran the kettle. That's maybe three. Yeah, totally. Because it's kind of like the top position, right? But you would open that. One of the old guys, Willie, he was like, "Hey, you want to do this for a living? Come here, let me show you some stuff." He'd open the manway door on the kettle, and it was to this day one of the most frightening experiences of my brewing career, because the amount of foam that was screaming at you and then would like right at the door kind of whip away and go up the kettle stack. You just sat there and just be like, okay, if that fan fails, I'm going to be maimed instantly. I mean, it was terrifying. It's terrifying. All the hoses, you're going to have to stop me about stories about Minnesota Brewing Company because I have so many. The hoses were all 3-inch din fitting hoses.
Oh my
right?
God.
And I don't think a lot of small brewers have any understanding of what that's like. So the cellars, the individual cellars, this is a huge brewery. The cellars were stacked on top of each other, like, I think it was like A through K. So however many high that is, 10, I don't know, stories high of cellars.
Yeah.
And each cellar would have of the A through K cellars, those were just what they called the RU tanks, the quiet tanks, the secondary conditioning tanks. And each of those cellars, I think, had either 10 or 12 horizontal 800 barrel tanks. Okay.
Whoa.
And right as you open the door, there was like 2 3-inch hoses coiled up. And then kind of 2 pipes coming out of the ground with caps on them. And those were the connections kind of to everything, to like the CIP system. And then you'd go downstairs and be a swing plate that would take you to another cellar kind of thing. But those 3-inch hoses, like your first day working in the cellar, the old guys would be like, all right, Rook, grab that hose and bring it over to 4. And you'd pick the hose up and you try to move it. And they would just sit there and like berate you, call you weak and stupid for like 5 or 8 minutes until they'd be like, all right, let me show you how to fucking do this. You didn't say a single sentence at that brewery without the word fucking, not a single one, right? But they were like, what you have to do is you have to take the hose, put it over your shoulder, back up into the hose, kind of take a couple steps back, and then start walking forward with it over your hose until it broke the surface tension with the floor. And then you could kind of just keep moving really slowly to where you got it and then drop it. But it was, I don't know, it was crazy, man. That job was crazy. I put 318 bungs, wooden bungs in kegs in 1 hour at that brewery.
Whoa. That is a lot.
Yeah. We had a 10-arm Hoff Stevens racker to fill bung-sided shit, what do you call them? Hoff Stevens kegs.
Yeah.
And slow was 250 kegs an hour. That was slow.
Holy cow.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
nuts.
You don't see those kegs much anymore.
No, you don't. And especially the old Hoff Stevens fittings. Did you ever work with those that are thread in?
No, I've seen them, but I've never worked with them personally.
Man, those things sucked because there was no shutoff. So you just start threading it in, and as the pins hit the beer, it just starts spraying beer everywhere, and then you just got to keep cranking down.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Good times.
Wow. So a somewhat.
Wait, hold up. I got to tell one other story because I'm just trying to tell you how different shit was. Okay. So the keg washer was this humongous fucking thing. It was made by the Enzinger company. Some people may know them from filters, but this is really old industrial equipment. You take a keg and you roll it sideways, so it's like rolling down into like this big machine. The machine is like, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 feet wide, and it's probably 50 to 60 feet long. And there's a series of spray balls going through this thing. And so it kind of, the keg rolls down, there's rollers, and it finds the bung hole to center, like get bottom dead center. And then arms kind of pick up on cams and move back and up and back and up and back. And so like every 10 seconds, the keg moves to a new spray ball. So it goes to like a rinse, a rinse, a rinse, a hot rinse, hot caustic, hot caustic, hot caustic, rinse, rinse, acid, rinse, and then it kind of comes out the other end. Okay. And then as it was in the caustic cycle, there was an automated arm that would come in and hit the spear on these Hoff Stevens kegs and kind of shoot the spear. Okay. Occasionally we would have to do these kegs that were called series kegs. And so what a series keg was it didn't have a gas side and a beer side to the valve on the top of the thing. It only had 2 beer sides. So for a really busy bar, you would have the wall, and then you'd have a series keg, and then another series keg, and another series keg, and then a regular keg. So it would push gas into the regular keg, and it would just jump beer to beer to beer to beer to beer, right?
Yeah.
But so the thing is that spear cleaner wouldn't work. Okay. So how you would clean these is this whole thing was kind of fiberglassed off, but there was one little area in the side of it where it had the little rubber kind of hanging things coming down, the curtains, rubber curtains. And there was a caustic gun. It was like attached to the machine, had a hose on it that attached to like a gun with a little, I swear to God, like 5x5 piece of plywood right in front of the gun, and then the thing's coming out. And you would have to reach through the curtain, and then stick your hand. There's caustic fucking going everywhere. Okay. And stick your hand in there and shoot the spear by hand. You were wearing like goggles and a face mask and a raincoat and a rubber like a apron underneath that. You were just like, and everyone would do the same thing. Like everyone would take turns doing it, and everyone would just sit there and go, fuck, 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 fuck. Just like we're just like hot caustic everywhere. It was a nightmare, man. It's crazy.
So after all this, you still wanted to continue working in beer.
Yeah. Oh man. I got the whole hour could be about Van's time at Minnesota Brewing that lasted 4 months. It was really cool. The brewmaster, I just have to shout out to some people. Siegfried Plagens was the brewmaster. I'm sure he's passed by now. He was from East Berlin, and he was a proper German brewmaster. When he found out I wanted to do this for real, he kind of took me to the side and showed me some extra things and told me that the first 2 years of his career, he did nothing but clean the floor underneath fermenters.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. They gave me Siegfried knew that I wanted to do this. So one day he came to me and he's like, Van, I have a job for you. I said, okay. He's like, here is a brush. Here is a scrubby. Here is a pail of soapy water. Let me show you where to find more soapy water. These are the stairs that go, they're like all metal stairs that go from the lower to the upper level of the brew house into the offices. He's like, those stairs have not been cleaned in 4 years. I want you to clean the stairs. I said, okay. So he started at the bottom and he started cleaning the stairs And I swear to God, Matt, I cleaned those stairs for 7 hours.
Yeah.
And after about hour 2, some of the old union guys started walking through and like looking at the stairs and looking at me, and they would just go, good job, kid, and then walk by. And then and after about another hour and a half, it became very obvious that they were like, some fucking kid is cleaning those goddamn stairs. You got to go see. And so all the old guys started coming by. And then after about, I don't know, it's maybe 3/4 of the way done, the junior master brewer comes by and looks at me, and he's just like, Havig, you're doing a great job with these stairs. And I was like, thanks, Phil. Thank you. And he's like, you going to finish today? Yes, I'm going to finish today, Phil. And then literally on the last step, Siegfried Plagans came by and was just like, looked at it, looked at all, and he walked up and down the fucking stairs and looked in the corners and shit. And then he was on the last stair and he was like, you have done a good job today, and fucking walked away. And I swear to God, that is one of the proudest days in my entire life in the entire brewery world. I swear to you. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's you have to find enjoyment in cleaning to be in this industry. Because if not, hopefully you can. If not, hopefully you have a job where you can pay someone else to do it.
Yeah. But I mean, to me, that day was me showing that I understood, what we do. That brewing's about detail, and brewing, it's about cleanliness, obviously, but it's about detail and it's about hard work. It's like the Mike. Do you know the Michael Lewis quote? Brewing is not fun. It is a profession. It is hard work. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's yeah. Hopefully you get enjoyment out of it, but yeah, it's a profession. Not
Well, I always tell people, I took German in high school, and I always tell people that that there's this German phrase, Arbeit macht das Leben süß. Work makes life sweet. It's not that like, beer makes life sweet or partying makes life sweet or fun. It's work. Work is what makes life sweet, right? You should work, and at the end of your day, you should feel like you fucking did something and that it mattered.
Yeah.
And that's brewing to me. That is 100% brewing to me.
I 100% agree. What I always say is work hard, enjoy the work, and enjoy when the work is done.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. That's that same thing. It's Arbeit macht das Leben süß, right? At the end of the day, you have your shift beer, and it feels great.
Yeah. Yep. And you can say, hey, I brewed that beer today. I packaged all those cases. I cleaned all those kegs. I cleaned those stairs.
Yeah.
Feel good about it.
Yeah.
Well, that leads me into another question I got for you. I think by most accounts, you're well known as a very intelligent person in many different subjects, maybe all the subjects. I don't know. Maybe one of the smartest people I know.
Untrue.
Why beer, and why stay in beer this long? I mean, you're an intelligent guy. You could be, I feel like whatever you put your mind to, you would excel at. What is it about beer that sort of initially grabbed you, then obviously you kept grabbing you for 30 years?
A, thank you. It's very nice of you to say. B, there's a point in the Luther Erasmus debates.
See, this is what I'm talking about.
This is Martin Luther and Erasmus, right? And this debating about Christianity and stuff. But the point is that that Martin Luther defines what he sees as a vocation, right? And a vocation, I'm not religious, but Luther's concept of a vocation is that that you have a calling, that and a calling is a little bit heavy. It means you kind of feel compelled to do it. You know that this is what you are supposed to do, whether you like it or not, and whether you really want to commit or not. And that there may be other things you want to do more, but this is your calling. I will tell you that I am a terrible cook. By which I mean, if you give me a recipe, I can follow a recipe. I'm a capable and reasonably intelligent person. But if you were to say, here's some ingredients, make a meal, it's going to be bad. Like it's gonna be bad. I'm just here to tell you. But I started home brewing because it seemed interesting and because I was a grad student and I had no money and I couldn't afford the kind of beer I wanted to drink. It was just too expensive, like craft beer.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is a lot cheaper. And as soon as I started brewing, it was like I discovered a language that I already knew and didn't have to learn. Um, everything just fell so, everything was so obvious and easy to me. I had been brewing for hardly any period of time at all, and I could just drink beers and be like, oh, well, you can tell what they're doing here is they're using this amount of crystal malt and this amount of black malt to make this porter. And then these hops are probably one of these two or three varieties, kind of thing. And it's, it's, it, brewing is my vocation. And when people say, oh, isn't it the greatest job in the world? I'm always like, fuck no. No? Why would this be the greatest job in the world? Like, I'm sorry, test driver for Ferrari, clearly a better job, right? I mean, duh. It's just that I'm not that good of a driver, right? But brewing is my vocation. And so at that point, it becomes throw everything you have into it, for me. And what I love about the job is that, brewing is so unbelievably complicated and there's so much to it, you know, that you're always learning. And I mean, I learned that very young. I learned that from Siegfried Plagans. He was like, look, young man, I'm still learning about this job, you know? And so I think it's easy to be engaged in brewing because you can always find something, even if it doesn't have to be recipe. It doesn't have to be um, hop chemistry, right? I mean, there's so much to learn about yeast behavior. There's so much to learn about one yeast that you use over and over and over again for decades. There's still stuff to learn.
Yeah.
And so, at this point, there's always that kind of dumb question. What do you fear most in life? I'll tell you what I fear most in life. I swear to God, not being a brewer. That
That,
that's my greatest fear
yeah.
because I I love brewing more than I love beer. You know, that's it's like if you want to talk about beer, I'm like, all right, whatever, cool. But you want to talk about brewing, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
So
Totally. Yeah.
that's the kind of thing, and there's ludicrously complicated stuff in brewing. I'm not a particularly good chemist. And so, struggling through the chemistry of brewing, that's not easy for me. And so that's challenging and that makes it worthwhile, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it's just something that it just clicked with you. That's really cool to hear. It's like you're homebrew and you're just like, ah, yeah, I get this. I know exactly what's going on and I can figure this out.
Yeah, it was weird. And especially because it's also the case that I think you and I were talking about this some point in the past. Most brewers are so flavor oriented, right? They got to go eat at the cool restaurant. When they travel, they have to eat all this food. And I like the only flavor stuff I give a shit about is liquid stuff. I mean, do I like a better pizza than a crappy pizza? Of course I do. But, I'm not obsessed about going to every pizza place and every place I go, you know.
Yeah.
But but drinks, particularly alcoholic drinks, like I really like that's what I care about flavor wise.
Yeah. It's endless. Endless
Yeah.
exploration.
Yeah.
Well, switching gears a little bit with I'd love to get into your experience at Rock Bottom.
Oh,
Being in Chicago, the Rock Bottom downtown Chicago is, a big part of the Chicago brewing scene, and there was upwards of 7, 8 Rock Bottoms in Chicagoland area at the heyday. Maybe I'm pulling numbers out a little. I'm being a little fast and loose with the numbers.
4 or 5, 4 or 5.
Maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But it always played a big role in the Chicago scene. So many friends of mine who are brewers, worked at Rock Bottom at one point or another. The brew house that I have now at Suncatcher is from a Rock Bottom.
Which one,
It's from La Jolla.
Oh, Marty's. Yeah.
Yeah, Marty. So I actually got in touch with Marty. I said, "Hey, I got your brew house."
Yeah, nice.
He was
Yeah.
excited. It's back in operation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like there was always kind of the yin and the yang with Rock Bottom. It seems like it was a wonderful place to work, a wonderful place to learn and explore. But there was always, when you talk to people at Rock Bottom, they're always like, "Oh, whatever, Rock Bottom. I don't like it here. I can't wait to get out." But I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about your time at Rock Bottom.
Yeah. So I talked to that specifically. Here's the thing about Rock Bottom is that for many years, it almost felt like two companies at one time, right? There was the brewery part, right? And you were expected to work with your general manager and the regional manager, sure. But they had very little real oversight over the brewers, unless the brewer was like a complete idiot and just fucking up left and right. You know what I mean? If the brewer is doing something, playing grab ass with the staff, 100%, the GM will, has power over them, right? But for beer and stuff, they had no idea, right? So it was all the brewery side that kind of regulated itself. And that was what was really great about Rock Bottom. I mean, I think back about coming up through Rock Bottom in the 90s and in the early 2000s. And, especially in the 90s, if you started a brewery in the 90s, you probably didn't come from anywhere else. You probably homebrewed and just started brewing, right? Like there were very few professionally trained brewers in the 90s. But Rock Bottom was started by a guy named Mark Youngquist. Shout out. If you're ever in Four Corners, Southwest Colorado, Dolores, Colorado, go to Dolores River Brewing Company, visit Mark Youngquist.
Oh, yeah.
So Mark was an early brewer at Bridgeport.
Okay.
And, and Carl Ockert, who started Bridgeport, the original brewer, he went to brewing school, right? So everyone that kind of came out of Bridgeport had some training through Carl. And then Mark started Rock Bottom and kind of right off the bat started kind of a sort of training progression. I'm going to train the first head brewer, and then that person will have assistants, and then they will always sort of move in a certain direction from assistant up through a head brewer, and then to kind of, even in the pretty early days, sort of a finishing school brewer, who for a long time was a guy named Roy Emmons. He's not in brewing anymore. We literally all refer to him as Uncle Roy. Super avuncular guy, right? And it was like, you have to get Uncle Roy's stamp of approval to become head brewer at Rock Bottom, right? But the point is that company grew pretty quickly, but it kept these sort of training standards in place. And then once that company got to have, 10, 12 breweries, suddenly it was like a little bit of a training factory for brewers. And not only that, but because there was a bunch of brewers and because we would have annual meetings where once a year all the brewers got together, we got to know each other. And so then it became pretty quick. You would call each other up, you began training each other. And by the time the early 2000s came around, Rock Bottom for small brewers was probably one of the best places you could get trained, because you would come up under some random head brewer who would give you the kind of basics, And then you would go to either me in Portland or a guy named Scott O'Hearn in Colorado. Scott O'Hearn, another great rock bottom brewer, shout out. He is at a tiny group of brew pubs in Colorado Springs called Colorado Mountain Brewery, I think. Anyway, go see Scott. He's awesome. And our job was to finish these people, make sure that their brewing knowledge was good and that their knowledge of compliance was good, safety, TTB, all that kind of stuff, as well as kind of the business requirements at rock bottom, inventory, cost control, yada, yada, yada. So, by the time you came through and were made a head brewer at rock bottom, you kind of had a complete skill set, right? Which is why I think there's a lot of rock bottom people out there working in other brewers who have done really well for themselves. And I don't really know of a lot of places that had that kind of training program. Large breweries aren't designed that way to train people to become their own brewer, right? Look, I have a basic brewing rule, which is if Sierra Nevada does it, I stop asking questions and just try to do what they do, right? Like they're the gold standard to me. And if I have a question and that's their procedure, I'm like, good enough, right? But even at Sierra, right, their job is to train brewers to work at Sierra, not to train brewers to be independent thinking, responsible brewers, right?
Okay.
Right. The only other company I can think of who maybe is that way is Iron Hill, which back on the East Coast back in the day won a ton of medals.
Oh yeah.
I assume they're still around.
Oh yeah.
Larry Horowitz, great ex Iron Hill brewer, super smart guy. That guy's awesome. But that was the super great side about rock bottom. That brewing camaraderie, education. I have a lot of friends from rock bottom. The bad side was kind of everything that happened outside the brewery walls, right? Dealing with the fucking marketing department, fighting with accounting, like so much corporate fucking shit. Stupid fucking regional managers who don't know a goddamn thing, walking in and thinking they can tell you something about running a brewery. There was a regional manager, Steve Buchanan. Everyone hated him so much that I remember I was up in Seattle with Josh Dalton, one of my best friends, great brewer. He works at Georgetown now. And the call came in that Steve Buchanan got fired, and Josh and I were instantly like, we need to go have a drink just to celebrate him getting fired. Todd Haug at Surly and then Floyd's and now at other half Chicago, right? Todd's always like, dude, I have fucking PTSD from that company. Just because of stupid corporate shit. It was fucking annoying. Great, a lot of great. There are some super shitty brewers that came out of rock bottom. Not gonna lie, I'm not gonna name them, but there are some really great brewers. My wife always jokes about that she wants to write a book about all the breweries that have been affected by rock bottom, because she's like it's seriously impressive, like where people from rock bottom have gone, and done things. And I don't think most of the world understands that. But I got a question for you about rock bottom, because when I was young and just starting in brewing, or before that, when I was a grad student, I would go to the rock bottom, but this was like in the mid 90s when the rock bottom was this is an amazing thing. In 1996, Cosmopolitan magazine, Cosmo, you know it, everyone loves it, wrote an article, top 10 places in 10 cities to meet men. Okay. The rock bottom breweries in Chicago, Minneapolis, Denver, and Portland, all on that list.
Legendary.
It was a fucking meat market. I would go, and my friends would go, because we were like, the beer was pretty good for 1994, 5, So, you were talking about it. What I mean, what was your guys' impression going to Rock Bottom in the, I don't know, late 90s, early 2000s, whatever, Chicago, all those rock. I mean, what was that? I don't even know. I was working there. I can't tell you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I will tell you in a moment, but we are going to take a short break for this message, and then we will come right back for more of rock bottom discussion and conversation with Van Havig of Gigantic Brewing.
It doesn't matter what size your brewery is, 1 barrel or 1,000. Maybe you're in planning. Whatever the size or situation, Ollie has helped brewers save money and become more efficient. The best part? When you're talking to the Ollie team, you're talking to people who have worked in the industry. Learn more about Ollie and how it's transforming breweries everywhere at getollie.com/pod. That's getollie.com/pod. Malt Europe Malting Company is proud to introduce the new Malta 2-row, grown and malted in Mexico. At Malt Europe, they're proud to be growing and producing malt in Mexico. They work hand in hand with Mexican farmers to ensure the best barley, which is then processed in their own local Mexico malt house to create this exceptional Malta 2-row. This product is a superior quality 2-row base malt and provides consistent quality designed to satisfy your desire to brew a true Mexican lager. Contact Malt Europe today and visit malteuropemaltingco.com.
Welcome back, and it's time to talk more about Rock Bottom Brewery. Van, you had asked me, I guess, what my take on Rock Bottom was at the time when I was a young craft beer enthusiast.
Yeah.
Looking at beer. Yeah, I always enjoyed Rock Bottom. I guess my formative craft drinking years before making beer was in Denver, in Colorado.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I lived in Golden, Colorado. But there were so many other breweries in Denver at the time, and the Denver Boulder. So we didn't go to Rock Bottom there a lot. But definitely, like when when I was traveling or like in a different place, whether a work trip or who knows what, I don't. Oh yeah, let's go to Rock Bottom.
Yeah.
And then in Chicago, just always loved it because Pete Crowley, legendary. Brewer, big personality, and it was just always exciting to visit Rock Bottom, Chicago when Pete was there, because there was always something going on. There's always
Pete, yep.
and the beers are always solid. He was so much pride in the beers, and that location made a lot of beer. So they were cranking hard. And they always had, the quality was always great.
Pete, to his credit, really rescued that place. The first brewer there, he's not in the industry anymore, but will still remain unnamed. He was just like, I'm just cranking beer out. Look how much beer I make. I don't care. I'm gonna fuck the cocktailers, And then the second guy was a guy who we used to call Edward Diacetyl Hands. Anyway.
Okay.
And then Pete took over and was like, wow, the beer's good now.
Yeah. There was a feeling of pride going in there and drinking the beer. And Pete was rocking it.
Good job.
So like I said, it's just echoing everything you have said. It always struck me as a place that was a great place to learn how to make beer. Got some freedom. So you went from cleaning stairs at a brewery that was so big you couldn't even find your way around to like now you're in control of a brew house, and you're making all the decisions. So
and that's the other thing about Rock Bottom that I don't think people didn't know it at the time, even though it was fucking obvious. That up until 2011, every Rock Bottom made totally different beers. Like the names may have been the same because they were just too cheap to rename things. But the beers from the very beginning, the beers were different everywhere. And that was a Mark Youngquist thing because he was like, look, everyone's water's different and everyone's local market is different. And so we should be making beers for the local market. So that's why the quality at Rock Bottom, we did our best to keep it high, but sometimes it would take a big dive because you get someone in there that wasn't that great, it was a great place to learn and kind of develop your craft,
Cool. Well, let's kind of fast forward and just get into gigantic now. Uh, it's your brewery has been an inspiration to me. I remember the first time visiting the tap room and visiting with you and Ben, and it's just a place that always sticks with me. It's got a great feeling to it. The
Thanks.
beers are very intentional, very personal. I don't know. Your gigantic is not a place that's going to make a beer that you're going to phone in or you don't believe in.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
yeah, just gigantic rules. When you're in Portland, go to gigantic.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, we miss sometimes. I think every brewery misses
oh, you
sometimes.
have to miss, yeah,
Just full disclosure. But
yeah. You got to go out of your comfort zone a little bit
yeah.
once
Yeah.
in a while. But one of the things that always stuck with me too was the fact that you designed that brew house with a hop back on it. Uh,
Yeah.
I remember being like, "Why did you do this?" And you were, if you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said something like, "Well, if you buy whole leaf, the amount of pounds required to do selection is much lower
Yeah.
than advertising." So being close to the Willamette Valley, uh,
Yeah.
you had a hop back, so you could select your hops, which is crucial to all beer quality is
Yeah.
hops and being able to do hop selection. So uh, I assume there's no rock bottoms that had a hop back. So is that's
No, that's not true. Portland did. So I worked at the Portland Rock Bottom for 10 years, and it had a hopback. And it had a hopback because we're next to the Willamette Valley. The original idea is that the brewer would be able to go down and just kind of buy from farms. And that didn't work out mainly as an issue of kind of time and stuff. I mean, farmers would definitely sell you direct. And we buy direct from farms now. And there's times when, at harvest time, huge advantage to being kind of a greater Willamette Valley area brewer is most of us know hop growers, you know, and you develop these relations. Some hop growers, like Gail Goshi is super friendly with brewers and loves to have relationships with brewers. But there's a lot of growers out there that are really open. And so, harvest time, you can definitely go down there and hops can definitely bump off the back of a truck. That 100% happens, especially hops that, they're trying out. So there's a hop 630 right now. I really honestly don't know if 630 is going to make it, but 630 is this kind of lovely fruity hop. And man, a few times I've been down there and people are like, "Hey, I got some 630. You want it? What's it in?" "That's a quarter bale." "Yeah, sure. Throw in the back of the truck." Just, and I can do that. I just get stuff. And then it's also super useful for making fresh hop beers. Because you just load all the hops in the hop back. And I guess I should be clear about something because I think there may be some brewers out there who are listening who are like, "I've got a hop back," and I'm probably going to be a total pedantic ass and walk into your brewery and be like, "I'm sorry, you don't have a hop back. You have what I would call a hop jack." If you have a 15-barrel brewery and you put hops into a small 2 to 3 barrel something and run the work through it, that's a hop jack. A hop back in British parlance, is a tank the size of the batch. It's a back because you can back it up. And so a hop back, you pump your entire kettle load into this tank, and then you drain it out of this tank. There's a 3/8 inch perf screen in the bottom of it, and the hops just get left behind. That's what I'm talking about. So everything we use in the brew house is whole leaf hops. Yeah, it's also great for you have absolutely no hop break left behind with a hop back, so it kind of helps with downstream clarity when you want your beer clear.
yeah.
Um, it there's some other weird advantages. A lot of people are like, I'm going to call them T45 hops, but some sort of cryogenically treated vegetative reduced hops. But if
Mhm.
you use all of them, the beer tastes kind of funny. And we're like, "Yeah, man, we use whole hops in the brew house, so we can use as much T45 pellet in the cellar as we want, and the beer tastes totally normal. We've got enough of that glycosidic material in there. It's fine.
Interesting little, yeah, with all the advanced hop products and yeah, like concentrated pellets and this and that, different names. But
Yeah,
that,
concentrated pellets. Yeah.
so using, yeah, so being able to load the hot side with whole leaf, you're getting all that extra goodness.
Yeah, that extra stuff.
You're not worried about on the dry hop, like missing any of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just not an issue for us.
Yeah.
And like I said, we keep doing it because it's kind of like, I think all brewers are a little bit like this. They keep doing this because that's the way they do it. And that's what our brewery is, and I don't want to let it go. I think if we all did the same thing, then we would all just make the same beer, and what the hell's the point of that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's sort of like Gigantic. We might go away from this one day. I don't want to, but our silo is full of pale ale malt. We don't have a silo full of Pilsner malt like everybody else, and our beers are a little bit darker than everyone else's. Everyone's making these like fucking straw colored IPAs and shit. And we're not doing that. We're not really putting crystal malt in them, don't get me wrong, but they just have a little more color. They have a little bit of, golden orange in them, and I like that. And a lot of that's just like, look, man, if we all made this again, I'm saying it again, if we all made the same beer, what's the fucking point?
Exactly.
So
yeah, that's the beauty of, I love visiting breweries and everyone's doing the same thing, but doing it differently. And it's just,
yeah.
blows my mind. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
That everyone found some other slightly different way to do the same thing that the rest of us do.
Yeah, it's kind of the fun thing about collaborations. We did a collaboration with, this is 2015 or something, with the Colonel in South London. You know those guys, right?
Good beer.
Yeah, I make great beer. Yeah. And did you remember Toby Munn?
Sure. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So Toby's an awesome dude. He's not brewing anymore. He's running the family farm. Good for him.
Wow, awesome.
But Toby had this genius idea for beer collaboration, which is the Colonel makes this the table beer. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I sure do.
Yeah. And that beer is what? It's like 3.2%, 2.8% alcohol, something like that. Super low. Yeah. And they make it in this crazy ass way. They mash it in Fahrenheit. They mash it at 163 degrees Fahrenheit. It's like an 8 gravity beer. They maybe 9 gravity beer. They mash at 163, like just below the level at which you're denaturing enzymes.
Yeah.
So that it terminates at like 3.5 or 4 Plato, and so it tastes full but has like very little alcohol. So he's like, what I want you to do for the collaboration is I want you to make table beer, but hop it however you want. That's our side of it. Is this is the method, and this is what we do, and your side is hops. We're like, great. And he's like, but I'm not going to be there for brewing. He's like, because when you make a collaboration, especially overseas, don't you want to drink the beer? He's like, so I want you to make it 3 weeks ahead of time.
Perfect.
And then when I get there, we can hang out and drink the beer. But more importantly, I just want to brew with you on a totally normal brewing day so I can see what you guys actually do in your brewery. And I was like, God, Toby, you're a genius. Right? Because isn't that what you really want to do? You want to like learn from other brewers, kind of their normal shit. So how do you guys do this thing that we do?
Yeah.
He's a genius. Yeah. We do a ton of collaborations, and I've still never requested that of anyone. One of these days.
Toby's a genius.
He is. He's such a sweetheart. He's like the night. Oh my God. Toby would not get mad at me for saying this, so no one needs to edit this out. We were at the Mikkeller Copenhagen beer celebration. And my wife, Emily, had met Toby, and Toby's such a sweetheart. She walks, so Toby is kind of shy, and he's kind of edging his way over to this cute Danish girl. And he's sort of just starting talk to her just a little bit, like, oh, let me help you with that, kind of thing. Like, oh, hi, I'm Toby, I'm near you, And Emily walks in, was like, Toby, oh my God, how are you? And he's like, I'm good. She's like, what have you been doing? And he says, oh, just being awkward somewhere else. And then Emily looked at him and looked at this girl, and and Emily was like, oh my God, Toby, I'm so sorry. Just like, can I help in any way?
How can
Toby
I?
said, no, I don't think anyone can help. Yeah, Toby. For everyone out there, Toby's not a bad looking dude. And he's super smart and he's really charming. Toby has no game. That's his problem. Poor Toby.
Well, hopefully the farm's treating him well.
Oh, get this. So it's the farm he grew up on. Get this. It's literally a mile away from where Winnie the Pooh takes place.
Oh, wow.
He grew up in straight up Pooh country.
Sounds idyllic.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Like Toby's like our own personal Christopher Robin.
Well, I'll have to hit you up outside of the podcast because I'm hoping to do a UK trip, visit some hot farms this fall, and I know you've done some walking trips out there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. And I have pub recommendations. I always have pub recommendations.
Awesome.
Wait, let me make a pub recommendation so everyone that listens to this can know to go there. The greatest pub in the universe, straight up, there are no other contenders, is the Three Stags Heads in Wardlow Myers in Derbyshire in the Peak District. Straight up. It's the greatest pub in the world, in the universe, actually. It is 3 miles from the plague village of Eyam. That's Eyam. And close to like Buxton and the Peak. That's kind of the bigger town. Bakewell, like Bakewell, Buxton are the kind of larger towns around there.
Okay.
It is only open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, bank holiday, Mondays. And it's awesome. Like, you have to follow the rules. The rules are basic. Say please and thank you. Be polite to people and be open and welcoming. And never, ever, ever, ever say this is a lovely country pub or anything like that.
I wrote all this down, so I'm ready.
Yeah. You will be kicked out of the Stags. I'm not shitting you for saying this is a lovely country pub. The owner will literally be like, right, fuck off. We don't need your kind. Get out. Excuse me. No, I said it the first time. Get the fuck out. Yeah, it's the greatest place ever. I've had people take me home for dinner from the Stags.
Oh, that's incredible.
The people are amazing.
All right. Well, now I know where to go.
Yeah, it's in the middle of nowhere. You
Perfect.
need to call to go to the Stags. Yeah, it's great. All listeners, everyone should go to the Stags. Yeah.
Heads.
The Three Stags Heads. I think it's the only pub in all of England called the Three Stags Heads. Because if you just Google it, it comes up.
Pop up.
Yeah, Jeff Palmer. Yeah, it's awesome.
Cool. Well, one final question for you as we kind of wind this down. I mean, I don't even, this is kind of, I don't even want to ask you this, but I am interested in your take on it.
Yeah.
Maybe kind of two different questions, and then you can kind of pick which one you want to answer.
Where I dare tread.
Yeah. One being, okay, you've been brewing for 30 years in the US. You've seen things come and go. You've seen beer kind of go this way, go that way. Things really went, things have really exploded in the last 10, 15 years. Just in context of like beer trends. It's like, how do you formulate like, okay, this beer is kind of going this way right now. There's this component of that I like. How do I dig into that? And how do we continue to, there's always the saying, evolve or die,
Yeah.
How do you have a business where you're relying on customers to purchase your beer? Finding that line between like catering to the customer, making sure you're providing something that your customers want, versus like losing, like you said, losing the hop back, losing what is,
Right.
the bedrock of gigantic.
Yeah.
And if you want to skip that, what breweries or beers in 2025 are you really pumped about?
Oh, I'm gonna answer the first one.
Okay.
Um, so I say this all the time, right? Like, even the smallest breweries are business, you know?
Yeah.
Breweries are businesses. They all are. And I snottily mean that in relationship to wineries, which I like to joke, look, if you didn't want to have a business, you should have started a fucking winery, right? Um, but so the thing about any business is, you have to, you have to have an identity as a business, and you have to have an identity as a brewery. And I think you need that to be your North Star as you navigate change in the industry. As I said, I think twice before, right? Like, if we all made the same beer, what's the point? So everyone needs to make different beer. And so you have to you have to keep up with modernization. But I think you can absolutely choose hills that you're going to die on, you know? So for me, there's a few hills I'm going to die on. I'm going to die on the hopback because I think in a weird way we're one of the last American breweries that are keeping traditional processes alive. Um, and the another one is isinglass. We actually use isinglass. And we use it not out of blind tradition, but because it works better than other finding mechanisms, and B, that common finding method that a lot of small breweries use. I don't want to be a jerk or anything, but it's silica based, and you are supposed to filter those beers because silica does build up in your body over time, and it's not that great for you. Um, uh, but so the isinglass I'm kind of dying on just because I'm just stubborn and it's better. And I don't, if you're going to be vegan and make a big deal out of that, then I'm going to talk to you about what happens when a combine runs through a field. Um, in case you don't know, they kill a lot of shit. Um, I don't think people understand this. Um, but there's other things, like the place where I have a current difficulty is hop products, right? We use whole hops, clearly okay. Pellets, well, that's just a hop that's crushed up. It's all
Yeah.
there, man. It's all there. What'd you call them? Concentrated pellets? Concentrated, but we use concentrated pellets. To me, I'm
Yeah.
like, you haven't really done much to alter anything, right? It's when you start getting into the hop oils and things like that. And we've used these at Gigantic because Ben, my business partner, has a very different idea than me. He's willing to do whatever. And I'm kind of like, I don't know, man. I got into this whole thing 30 years ago because everyone was trying to deindustrialize beer, and I feel like it's being reindustrialized.
Totally.
So, so I don't mean to criticize any brewery that uses those products. I just mean that every business and brewery needs to have an identity, and you need to have beliefs about what you're doing. And I don't know where I stand on that. So we those products we tend to use in collaborations a lot because the other brewers want to do it, and we're kind of open to whatever. Hey, you want to do it? We'll give it a shot. You know. Um, but there's some other things um, that have been happening. Enzyme use, ALDC, right? Um, Man, I don't like ALDC. To me, I'm like, why don't you learn how to be a fucking brewer? You know? Because if
Uh,
you're actually a good fucking brewer, you could take care of that. Now, well, but it allows us to make more beer. Okay, that's fine. You get to make that choice. It's your business, right? It's your business. You can make that choice, and that's fine, right? But don't tell me that you can't deal with it, because you can, right? And that brings you into like genetically modified yeasts. I'm not saying they're bad at all. It's just that's one of those like, fuck, man, I don't know. You know, I don't know. It's still yeast. That's okay, you know. But is that an industrialization of the product? ALDC to me is definitely an industrialization of the product. 100%. You're putting exogenous enzymes in. Bullshit. That's not craft brewing to me. And I'm not gonna call anyone out. To me, just to me, my personal gigantic, that's it, right? The hill I'm gonna die on, right? But then to go to like things like, I don't know, other things that people think are comfort, hazy IPA, right? Do I like making hazy IPA? Not really. But gigantic's a business, right? If I didn't want a business, I'd go start a winery, right?
Yeah.
Same joke, you know. But it's a business, and they sell, and people like the way we make them.
Yeah.
And we definitely do not read or visit all the hot shit hazy. This is how you make hazy. Put the fucking calcium chloride in there. No, we don't do any of that. We
Yeah.
have our own way of doing it, and you can like it or not, and that's fucking fine. But that's how we're going to do it, right? We don't even use brewing salts, and that's just a philosophical thing that I think that the only local thing that you can have as a brewery is your water. Why the fuck are you changing your water? Do you think that Pilsner or Quell is like doing fucking salt additions? Of course they're fucking not. Do you think that in Munich they're like, oh, we have to dick around with all? No, they fucking make Munich beer. Right?
Yes. Yeah. This is what I'm
You
talking
know?
about. Less is more.
So, yeah, and so in Portland, I don't give a fuck if our water is not hard enough to make stout the Irish fucking way. I'm not fucking Irish. I'm not in fucking Dublin. I don't give a shit. I am making Portland fucking stout.
Yeah.
So I don't care. And you can talk to me about it, will, in competition. Yeah, we don't enter competitions either because I do not fucking care. I don't give a shit about, we've won medals. Ben used to like to be in competitions. I don't give a shit. I race cars. I know that if I'm faster than someone, I won. If a group of 5 judges like my beer today better than your beer, and then in 2 months a different group of 5 judges like your beer better than my beer, who fucking won?
Yeah. I'm right there with you. Although I just attended the World Beer Cup Awards for the first time since 2011, and I was like, man, this is a lot of fun. I wish I entered something.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I just, it's so keeping up with things. Yeah, you gotta change with the times, but I think that's an issue more of like how style develops, and also from a business perspective. I would like to make more Belgian style beers, but they have become so difficult to sell, you know? And we're a 15 barrel brew house, and that I get that's not very big, but it's a lot. It's fucking over twice the size of a 7, and it's 5 times the size of a 3. You know?
This is straight math.
Yeah. Look at me. Um, uh, and so we just, we've got to brew 15 barrels at a time. That's sort of tough to do. We can do that maybe once a year. I think a lot of those beers are beautiful, and there's really great yeast expression. There's a lot cool going on, but the market dictates some things, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I feel really lucky to have been brewing for the last 30 years and to have been part of what is frankly the United States' great impact on the beer world. By having been a brewer and having been in, or even in DC, or making certain hop forward beers and being a part of that evolution, I'm not saying that I'm like the most important. I'm a fucking tiny little bit of it, okay? But it doesn't matter. Being along for the ride, it's like, how stoked would you have been to be living in, the early 1850s when lager suddenly exploded, and to be like, we changed the world in beer, right? To have been part of to be a part of like the British industrialization of brewing, really look at what we're doing. But for all of us who have been around frankly, everyone who's been brewing for at least, say, 5 or 6 years, I think, has a legitimate claim to saying they've been part of this, But for me, it's been 30 years. And when we started, the most aggressive hop out there when I started was Centennial. And Centennial was not widely used. It was like a tiny, tiny blip. Oh, have you used Centennial? It's pretty, you should maybe try it. That's when I started, we were talking about making pale ales combining Tettnang, American Tettnang, and Hallertau. I shit you not, right? People don't get this. When I started brewing, the hop cooler at the Minneapolis Rock Bottom had Willamette, Cascade, U.S. Hallertau, U.S. Tettnang, Chinook, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Nugget, maybe those, And by the time I left a year and a half later, we had Centennial, Crystal, But the difference in being part of that difference from going from Cascade to Citra.
Yeah.
And everything that means. Like, I don't know if people understand like what we were trying to do to try to get more Cascade in beer, Granted, no one knew that you could dry hop at 3 pounds a barrel. That didn't exist, right? But still, just that trying, where do you put it? How do you do this? Can you dry hop? Can you still manage your yeast strain at a brew pub and dry hop a beer? All this sort of stuff. Figuring all that shit out.
Yeah.
I'm proud that I was a part in some tiny way of what has essentially become the American Revolution in beer. Revolution being a bad thing. The great American contribution to beer, which is really pushing hops in this way. That's what we've done.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible to go, pretty much around the world and see, obviously when we're traveling around the world, we're probably going to a craft beer fest.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You see the impact, and it's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah. Oh, it's massive. Absolutely massive. And everyone asking, how do you?
Yeah.
And realizing that they can all just ask. And we'll tell them.
Yeah.
We all figured it out over decades. It took a long time.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation. I maybe got through half of the things. We could keep this going forever, and we hopefully will. I'm looking.
Well, I'm going to see you in like a week and a half.
I know. I'm looking forward to it. We can talk. So much great stuff. That was awesome, Paul. Great talking with you, Van. Just a total legend. So thank you. Thanks for doing this. And Van will be back on the next episode of this show as the host, having a conversation with a brewer of his choosing.
With something, you know what I'm going to do? I'm gonna, I need to find someone and I know some of these people, but I really want to find someone who has been brewing for 8, 9 years.
Yeah.
You know, maybe, I mean, it could be longer, it could be 12. But the point is, I really want to talk to someone whose brewing experience kind of starts no earlier than 2012 or 13, you know, because things change so fast at that point, and it's such a wildly different experience than my own.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think a wildly different attitude about what beer is. I don't mean in a bad way, just different. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, stay in 2 weeks. We'll be able to listen to this conversation. Um, so a final reminder: visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media. To support journalism in the beer space, check out allaboutbeer.com/support. I'm Matt Gallagher of Suncatcher Brewing. Thanks for listening to the Brewer to Brewer podcast.
Malteurop Malting Company is proud to introduce the new Malta 2-row, grown and malted in Mexico. At Malteurop, they're proud to be growing and producing malt in Mexico. They work hand in hand with Mexican farmers to ensure the best barley, which is then processed in their own local Mexico malt house to create this exceptional Malta 2-row. This product is a superior quality 2-row base malt and provides consistent quality designed to satisfy your desire to brew a true Mexican lager. Contact Malt Europe today and visit malteuropemaltingco.com. This episode was proudly brought to you by Ollie, the brewery software that could save you massive amounts of money and time, just like we did for hundreds of brewers like you in 2024. Make 2025 the year you switch to Ollie and discover why it's the fastest growing brewery software trusted by thousands of brewers across the globe. Visit getollie.com/pod to learn more. One more time, that's getollie.com/pod. Cheers.